Welcome to Skybound Ops.
Hi, everybody. This is Ralph with Skybound Ops. How are you? I hope so. I hope good. If you remember, we're the show where we explore the people keeping aviation moving, which was one of the original intents of this little podcast. Whether it's the boardroom, whether it's the showroom, it's whichever it is, we like to put a spotlight on it. And today's not going to be any different. Uh, I'm speaking with somebody who is going to show you that aviation doesn't just happen. You have to go out and you do it from every angle that you need to look at, and you'll find out hopefully sooner than later what I'm talking about. I'm joined by Michael Miner, the CEO of GSE America and Proserv Aviation, which are two companies that have become trusted names across the aviation services and supply chain world. In the short time that I've known him on a personal note, I think one word to describe him is focus. Early from his hands-on days in ground support to building nationwide service coverage for every major brand, he's built operations known for precision, for quality, and no shortcuts. And I promise you, speaking to him is exactly what I just said. So in this episode, we'll dive on how he scaled two complementary businesses. Services first really means in aviation, and how he leads distributed teams across the country and staying focused and listening to the customer. So buckle up, because I think he's going to be one of those guests on this episode that reminds us why aviation is as much about people and process as it is about planes. So without any further ado, Michael, thank you for joining. How are you today?
Wonderful. Stout introduction. Thank you. I appreciate that. I've got a lot to fill in here now. Yeah, so my name's Mike Miner. I am the founder of GSE America LLC and the current CEO of Proserv Aviation. We acquired Proserv in late 2022. Thanks for having us on the show, Ralph.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I love your story, and hopefully I'll get a chance to give you part of mine, but this is more about you and what you guys are doing. A spoiler alert. I'll let everybody know I'm one of Michael's vendor. My company rather is one of Michael's vendors. We might talk about that a little bit, but the relationship that I think we're building is sort of new, and I'm excited to sort of dive into his history. So again, Michael, thank you for joining us. How do I put this? So I think you've got a very fascinating dual role. That's the only way that I can put it. GSE America and ProServe Aviation. How do you usually describe what you do when somebody asks you what you do?
I'm definitely a path creator. I'm a director. I've always used that title. And uh, in the daily business operations, that can be a new employee. Maybe they're in a new role, new mechanics, anything where somebody gets stuck. New roles, people kind of stand at the jungle with the machete and they're trying to figure out what to make from it. With that, I'll sit down and I'll figure out a path forward. There's people out on the shop floor and they might just have a broken bolt. They don't know how to drill and tap. So usually what I find is my day is made up of ensuring a path for others.
That's awesome. Do you remember? Take us back. Do you remember what first drew you into this industry and the path that you ended up on?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's definitely morphed a lot since my origin. But um, when I first got started, I knew that in ground support equipment, I could provide benefit. And I know that that sounds stupid, but looking at it from the outside in, people who are trying to fix their own ground support equipment, they're typically not well versed on the different revisions of equipment. They're definitely not communicating. So if one guy at one company figures out something with his hydraulic power unit, he stops there. The unit's operational, they go back to using it, but there isn't really a community of shared breakthroughs in the ground support equipment community. So I got to looking at it and I thought, well, if one person could specialize in this enough, there'd definitely be a market. And I looked at it like, I didn't have the ambition that I do now to be in all 50 states. I kind of thought, well, I'll just target Florida. And in Florida, I knew that if I specialized in this equipment, I could at least get enough of the customer base to start. I knew that I was successful at starting. I
That's
think
that.
that,
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead, Ralph.
No, I was going to say that that's awesome. I mean, I can relate to some of the stuff that you said. So, when you first got into it, did you figure everything out on your own, or was there an early experience with a mentor or somebody who helped you open doors in order to get you involved in it as much as you did?
I've definitely been a self-starter and I've taught myself quite a bit. I don't believe in anybody who says, I'm from the bottom to the top. I've done it all myself. It's just not the reality. In many different shapes and forms, we take help. So I had help. I definitely had inspiration. I've had kick-ass mentors my entire life. Some that were from craft and skill, some that were just hardcore discipline, some that were of innovation. I've definitely never had any that were of inheritance. So maybe that played a crucial role. I've had a lot of mentors who were self-starters, and then the industry itself is really inspiring. Uh, there's a phenomenon. I don't see people leaving the industry. You don't see people get out of aviation. Um, and I think with that, it latched onto me as well. Maybe the only thing that was a little bit of an adjustment is aviation really takes 24 hours literally. People forget that you can get a flight on Christmas Day, which means people are slinging bags on Christmas Day and baggage tractors are breaking. And maybe even the ERP company that's hosting the software gets a phone call that day because parts need to be transferred and there's a module down. So your phone can ring at any time. I think that where that would deter a lot of people, it inspired me.
I love that. You know what? I agree with just about everything that you said wholeheartedly. Not that this is the point of the conversation, but to make a long story short, I got into aviation accidentally in 2007, and I
Mhm.
relate 100% to what you said, which is you get in and you don't get out. Because my initial intent at the time was I'm going to do this for a short amount of time, then I'm going to go do A, B, and C, and then
Mm.
15, 16 years later, I was still doing it. And then I left in 2022, and then a year later I came right back in and I felt right at home.
Right.
So I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
um, you've actually led two thriving companies. What were the moments that defined each?
GSE America was definitely the beginning. I say that nobody starts without help, but it is possible to take very little help. It is possible to start just completely butt naked. When I started GSE America, I had never seen my house before. We had never seen the shop before. We left Ohio, moved to Florida, and both the properties we had rented online without viewing them first. It wasn't that reckless. We had a little bit more prep into it, but definitely the first 6 months of GSE America, I knew that if I could get to 6 months that I'd survive, I'd be okay. But at the very beginning, when you have $68 in your bank account, like there's a lot of question marks in your life. So that was definitely probably the unknown period for GSE America. Once I started to establish customers, I knew I was betting on myself at that point. There's not a lot that I can't fix because I have a mentality. There's not a lot that I will allow to go unfixed. I'm here until I'm not. That's the way I look at every on-site service that we get to. So um, the first 6 months with GSE America, Proserv was very interesting. We acquired Proserv. I knew that I was going to do it from the course of 2020 to 2022. And in 2022, when it happened, I still didn't feel completely prepared for it, but I knew that I kind of had to get off the raft. And I did uh, purchase the business from Proserv Aviation Inc., Tom Radwill, a previous owner. And it wasn't much longer that he passed away. So it was kind of one of those situations where, you read in the book Tribe of Mentors, one source has to go away for the next one to be able to fully step into their seat. There was an aspect of that. I always go back to Henry Rollins' article, The Iron and the Soul, um, where I knew this was kind of my reassuring principle. I knew that I would be okay because the situation was going to tell me if I was doing a good job. The business will tell you. The building will tell you. You can sit in your car outside the building every morning. You can just stare at the building, what you know happens inside that building, what you know you're doing well, where you know you have to improve. And that's the iron. It tells you what you're doing well. So it was difficult for me to navigate. Definitely when Tom passed away, there was a lot of new information. We had prep into it. The previous couple years, we kind of knew what we were getting into, but that was definitely the now it's on us moment.
It's touching that you say that. Let me explain to you exactly what I mean. Not the same situation as yours, but when I was first starting out a long, long time ago, I
Mhm.
had a similar experience. I was freaking out about something. I didn't know if I could do it. I was doubting myself and trying to figure out if this is the right move. And then one of those people that you talked about, which is the people that get put in your life for specific reasons, only if you're receptive to listen to what they have to say,
Mhm.
told me something almost identical to what you just did. They basically told me to stop, slow down, and listen because the answers were all staring me in the face. And I couldn't see them because of the craziness that I had. And
Yeah.
it wasn't an overnight cure, but it took a few days, a few weeks, if I remember correctly, but they were absolutely on point. And I think that's one of the best pieces of advice I've heard anybody say and received myself. So I like that a lot.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Tell me a little bit about how did you go with GSE America? How did you go from regional to nationwide? And then a two-part question. I don't want to throw you off. As after the acquisition of Proserv Aviation, how did you balance the two?
Yeah. That's an interesting one. So the first question, going from regional to nationwide. It's funny that you asked that. When we first started, we were actually doing field service. We were nationwide just as a mentality. The first 2 years that I started the business, I was by myself, just operating a truck and trailer, and I slept in that truck 191 nights. I was driving the entire United States and just doing field service. The facilities were actually a spinoff of that. So a lot of people know us now as our facilities and the restoration services that we offer, but it started as field service. And then, once we got our footing in the facilities and built big enough teams, then we were able to pivot back towards field service. And I think that's where, people see the nationwide, the optics really shine.
They do. They do. I know exactly what you're talking about. So, with that thought in mind, how do you think ProServe and GSE America complement each other right now in your daily operations?
Yeah, they're definitely synergies. And going back to the previous question, I didn't answer yet. How do I balance them both? They're kind of two questions in the same. I make sure that everything we do goes together. One thing that's always allowed us to optimize our services is being independent. We don't have a lot of outside influence. GSE is all that we do, and all we do is GSE. So we're not spinning out parts on our lathe for local vendors.
Mhm.
GSE has always been our focus. With that, we've been able to keep complementary product lines. So ground support equipment and aircraft wheels goes pretty hand in hand. If you're using an axle jack, you're probably changing a wheel, and if you're changing a wheel, you should probably have an axle jack. So I don't want to say that they were crafted together, but we've always had synergy from the beginning. I started working with Proserv Aviation very early on before I acquired them, and I've always just made it a point to keep those synergies aligned.
That's great. That's absolutely great. And it makes perfect sense, especially when you put it that way. Just looking from the outside looking in, what the way that you just outlined it, I think is perfect.
Well,
Now, go ahead.
I've seen a lot of other companies. We've all worked for them. I've worked for them in the past where you're doing something. It's your mainline objective. It's your mainline product or service, and then we say, well, we can start doing something else over here for complementary revenue. And
Hmm.
my response to all of those is, well, I can start painting cars. There's not a lot that I don't mean to brag here, but like for all of us, we're competent people. There's not a lot that we can't do. I'm just an advocate for specializing in one thing. There's the concept shokunin, like practicing the art of sushi for 30 years, being in first place, but still wanting to be better. The
Hmm.
striving for excellence. That's something that I've always been about. So I really keep our focuses pretty narrow.
No, that focus is great. I mean, not as profound as that term that you used for it, but the opposite of that would be, jack of all trades but master
Mm,
of none. You accomplish nothing, but you end up doing a lot of things. But when you put that focus in on where it needs to go, I think magic can happen. So how do you parlay that into maintaining quality, maintaining trust and responsiveness when you've got teams working coast to coast?
yeah, I think a big one is presence. It's there were times that I thought I could lead the business by being more sheltered. There were times that I knew that I had to get more involved, and I've just always kind of I've always maintained that lesson. There's the phrase that people respect what you inspect. And while the world is trying to create autonomous environments, I think that they're super necessary. You can't be at the beach. I'm never at the beach. I might not be at the Florida facility. I might be at the Wisconsin facility and vice versa. But the reason that we've excelled, especially in field service, is today, we're going to get off of this call and I'm going to load up the van and I'm going to go to a field service job 7 hours away. I don't ever take myself out of the situation. It's not that I'm always watching, but the businesses are small enough. You can see it all. You don't have to look. You don't have to watch your people. If you're in the building, you'll see it all. That's all it takes is presence.
It does. It does. My dad taught me that a long time ago. You just have to be present. He used to tell me, you just have to be present,
Mhm.
and you'll see exactly the things that you need to do. And he has one of those old school mentalities.
Mhm.
When I was growing up, I didn't understand half the stuff that he did, but as I grew up, they started to make sense because I started listening. And
Right.
presence was one of those things that still resonates with me every time I talk to him.
A
Uh,
lot of people will do that because they think, if they show up to the building, if they attend, that people will pick up on the mood, that people will alter their behavior or stand up straight. And that's not at all what it's about. It's that if they see you cleaning the toilet, I clean the toilet because I'm sending a message. It's difficult to find people in today's world. It's more difficult when you don't offer benefits. It's even more difficult when they come in and they see what your toilet is like and it's not clean. So it doesn't matter to me like levels or titles or any of those types of things. I show people what is important to me and then they replicate.
it's I like that. I like that a lot. And again, it takes me back, one of the earlier lessons from people that were in my journey that helped me come up to here is they told me I was mad about a title. I was mad about something that I missed when I was 25 or 26. And I remember Scott, that was one of the guy's names. He pulled me aside and he goes, "What do you care what your title is? It could very well be head toothpick counter." And I remember that like it was yesterday. But he goes, ultimately, if you're doing what you love and you're helping people and you're making a good living because of it, it doesn't really matter what title's on the door. And he goes, just live the life, make sure that you act as a resource for the people around you, and then everything else will work itself out. And that couldn't be more true 25 years later.
That's 100% it. If people see that you're the individual making it easier to hire, or they see that you're the individual that makes it a better place to work, they gravitate towards you. And I've found, if you can ask people if they prefer more comfort and they will vote yes every single time. But if you give them more comfort and you just sit back and watch, you find that that's where people start sitting more, watching their colleagues, complaining about who's doing more or less work. But if you step into a facility and you brighten the lights and increase the hours and increase the activity, you can ask people if they prefer that. For some reason, they will tell you no. But if you watch them, they thrive. That doesn't mean push them or break them, but create a reasonable challenge for individuals, and they really enjoy that. That's the environment they want to be at every day. They don't want to be around losers.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big part of culture. So speaking of which, um, how do you maintain your culture and grow it currently with the two companies?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite questions to ask, and I think sometimes people are surprised by my answer. But I don't work at figuring out what the right culture is. You see the entire world, reading books and writing books dissecting what the right culture is. None of that matters. You can have a unified culture at Starbucks, and Starbucks can be huge. You can have a unified culture with inside the military, and the military is huge. What matters the most is that you don't cross contaminate people from those cultures. That's it. You can have a
Absolutely.
you can have a building. This is not our setting, but you can have a building that is as extreme as the tire shop where you can say whatever you want, anything. Anything within your imagination can be said inside that building and it works because everybody in that building talks the same. And the same is said for Starbucks. The same is said for our entities here. We just make sure that everybody is alike. It'll all work out.
Absolutely. I love that. I absolutely love that. There's more to be said about action than just definition or writing down what things ought to be. I think if you live them, and I think if you show the people around you that you're living them and they can live it too, I think they follow almost blindly because it just feels natural. So I love the way that you just put that. I think it's spot on and right on the money.
Thank you. I
Uh,
think about it. I think about it, humans are on a spectrum. We can remove what we would consider not normal, pedophiles, psychopaths, whatever, take them out, right? What you're left with, that population that we might call normal. I look at people in the building where one guy puts away all of his tools correctly except screwdrivers. Okay, so now there's some ambiguity there. The way that he does it is not the exact same as the next person. And maybe the one thing that everybody forgets to do or doesn't prioritize during the day doesn't make sense with the other nine that they prioritize. But when you really start looking at humans as a spectrum like that, you cannot look at it as right and wrong culture. There is no good and bad culture.
it's just culture, and you're absolutely right. So, not to change topics tremendously, but I'm going to throw you one out there that we're not talking about. What do
Mhm.
you think is the most underrated piece of GSE equipment?
I thought about this a lot, and I don't know that I have an answer yet. I was going to throw out tugs. Not that people underrate them, that they can or can't do more, um, but they're definitely taken for granted. It's very common to walk up on a tug with 7,500 hours, and the only thing that they've done was put more gasoline in it, and they're surprised that they have a $5,000 preventive maintenance bill or repair bill or something like that. They're probably the most abused.
They are. They absolutely are. And again, in addition to that, I think it ties into the comment that you made earlier. A Christmas Day, you can book an
Mm.
airplane, so people are out there working. And I think that's one of the pieces of equipment that facilitates that and makes it possible. So you have to take pride in it and take care of it as time goes on. Um, odd question. What do you think is your favorite airport you've ever worked at?
FedEx Memphis, and I was actually going to touch on that a little bit here a minute ago. I probably
I love
shouldn't
that.
I shouldn't tell the story, but when we're talking about underrated gear or maybe abused gear, I've been at that facility one time, and it was miraculous to me watching a baggage cart being dragged to the flight line. The tires not doesn't even have air in it. There's no rubber left. It's just a wheel that's getting dragged, and we all know the reason at the Memphis facility for this to occur. They care about making the flight. So I would say favorite airport. I've done a tour there. I haven't done the night tour, watched all the takeoffs, but I've done a tour while working at the facility, and it was just incredible. The magnitude of the operation. You see baggage tractors that are waiting for an oil change, and that parking lot to them is normal standby. And to me, it looked like a parking garage at the airport. It's just absurd. Very cool.
That's pretty cool. I like that. I love from a different standpoint. I love that airport as well, but that's neither here nor there. So it's funny that you bring that up. So it's pretty cool. Uh,
If you're a GSE nerd, that's the place to just go ramp watch.
I can imagine. I can only imagine the technology that makes everything possible to,
Hmm.
notwithstanding the people that actually enable that technology to do what it does. It is
Yeah.
cool because again, not to be repetitive, but that's one of those other things I think we all take for granted. If it weren't for those places, those people, and that equipment, you can't get your Christmas present on time. You
Yeah,
can't get your
exactly.
birthday present on time, and you owe a lot to people that you've never met.
Yeah, it's unfortunate the number of people sitting around hoping that what takes place at that invisible facility to them goes right.
Yeah. Well, they know they hit a button. 2 days later, they get their package. They don't
Right.
understand everything that it takes for them to get it. Hey,
Yep.
listen, if somebody's listening who's just started in aviation in their career, what's one piece of advice you'd give them?
Pay attention, work the hours, hump the hours, and keep your eyes open. I always tell people I feel like I could leave GSE after 20 years and still not know anything about it. I could go to Menzies today, apply for a job, and I know they would be all asking, like, how did this guy make it in the door, right? There is just so much to GSE. I had somebody ask me a couple weeks ago, what do you think the size of the used market is? And I start zooming out because at first I'm thinking, okay, the size of the used Tronair market, what could that be? And then I start thinking, well, his question was the used market. So then I start thinking, whether it's corporate or commercial, military, doesn't matter. What's the size of all that used market? And I just kind of keep zooming out and zooming out. Seriously, just get involved, work the hours, pay attention, and after 30 years, you will have achieved something.
You know, the hard work I think is also so underrated. I don't want to digress, but a short story. So when I graduated college, for the first 2 years, the jobs that I was applying for was VP of this and director of that and this, that, and the other, because at 23 years old or 22 years old, the title is what meant the most to me. And I know we touched about that a little bit earlier on,
Yep.
but again, it took one of those people to basically not have a very positive conversation, but a very real conversation with me that gave me the same advice. Go put your time in, do what you need to, do the jobs that you don't want to touch, talk to the people that you don't think you should talk to, and get the experience. And if you do that anywhere close to being right, the things that you're chasing, the accolades that you want, and the successes that you want to have will start to come. So I love that comment that you made, and I think that's probably one of the best pieces of advice that we can give to anybody.
You almost can't go wrong. You know, I think about this all the time. So like we think that aviation is a old industry, but like when you really think about the industry's birth, you had World War II, and then after that, civilian travel. Fun piece of information. In the 1960s, what percentage of the population do you think had been outside of the United States?
I would say it's very low.
Air travel outside the United States, 1960s. What do you think the
As percentage of population, probably less than 5%.
6%? Very good. Yeah. So then, you know, fast forward, we got the 747, the market's really kind of evolving. What do you think and I'm obviously not talking about today, I'm talking about the 60s and the 70s, but fast forward to today, what do you think that number is? The percentage of people who have been outside the United States, air travel?
Outside of the United States, I would probably have to put it at 40 to 50%, maybe 45% if I want to split the middle.
Pretty close to 75%.
Wow.
Yeah. So I always think about this. The industry is relatively new, and nothing beats us until time travel or teleportation. Like what comes along and makes it so that people don't want to be at their destination faster?
Right. Yeah, that's actually it's a right on question. You're absolutely right.
So for anybody who's getting into this, literally, but just pay attention. It's so vast. It's so deep. You can do anything in this industry.
That's one of the best pieces of advice, and it's applicable almost everywhere else, or just about everywhere else, and it's right on the money. Michael, before we wrap up, a couple of things. If somebody's For everybody that's listening, if somebody new is listening, what's one or two sentences you can say about GSE and Proserv, and where would you want these people to go in order to learn a little bit more about what you're doing?
First off, I'm always in the field. You can always visit me in the field. GSE America, you can visit at gse-america.com, and Proserv Aviation at Proserv, Proserv, aviation.com.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. It feels like there's so much more we can talk about, but I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for being part of our business, and I want to thank you for everything that you shared with us today. I appreciate your time, and I wish you very well. I've learned a lot from you, so thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. I really appreciate it. It's been great being on the show. This is something new I'm getting into, so it's nice to kind of have somebody that I can go through these topics with, and it's always been a pleasure working with you guys. For those of you who don't know, ERP.Aero hosts an incredible ERP. We've been working with them since 2022, and it's just been very developmental since then. Anytime that we've got questions, anytime that we need resources, which you can probably vouch, we're up there on the volume scale. Anytime that we reach out, we've always gotten really good feedback, and we've got traction. Any of the modifications that we've wanted have been put in place. So it's been a very good working relationship, Ralph.
It means a lot. And one more thing, I guess, before we wrap up, thank you for those words. It's very much true. Proserv has been with us almost from day one. They've been with us when we were small, as we started to grow. And just like with Proserv, with all of our customers, we listen, we take it in, and we create action, and we create those solutions. So I'm glad from your perspective, we're listening. We're going to continue to do that. And I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much, Michael.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ralph. It was great being on the show.
Have a great day. Thank you all for joining us.
You do the same. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye.